Hey guys, good morning. It's Mr. Coley yet again. I'm sorry I didn't change my sweatshirt. I thought about it because it's a different day, so you consider that I would wear something different. But considering it's only been like half an hour for me, I'm still wearing the same thing. Whatever. So today, what we're gonna do is you should have by now, you should have completed all the things in your super awesome packet of cells up to the cell analogy page, which there are 2 pages of cell analogies. The first one we are going to do together today in this video, and then the other one you guys are going to come up with on your own. And there's instructions on the top of the page for that. Okay? So what you guys need to do now is get out your, if you have not already done so, your super awesome packet of cells. And you're going to turn to the cell analogy page. It's going to look like mine's all filled out because we're going to be talking about it today, but the cell analogy page. Okay? So do that. I will wait, I don't know, 10 seconds for that. I don't know if I have a cool song to do the wait. I could just sing the Jeopardy tune, but then I can't sing, so. If you guys have not seen Star Wars, go see Star Wars. It's amazing. I've seen it twice already. It's amazing. Simply amazing. Even if you don't like Star Wars. Well, if you don't like Star Wars, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But it's pretty good. Anyway, so you guys should all be on the cell analogy page now. Okay? So there was many different ways that I thought I was going to do this when I had more time. Where I was going to put what I was going to have you write like on the bottom of the screen. Would show up like here where the American Eagle thing is. I just don't have time. Now it's like 10 hours until I leave. But anyway, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give verbal instructions and then try to show you on the cell analogy packet. But it's probably going to be much more important that you guys are paying attention to the video, which means that you are looking at the video, you're listening to the video, and you're not talking, right? Sound familiar? It's amazing, right? Okay. So the instructions on the cell analogy page says that cells work together as a system, which they do, just like many things in our world. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing a city to a cell. And we're going to look at the major organelles. So by now you know that organelles are kind of like the organs of a cell. So like we have organs like our heart, our liver, lungs, brain, skin. So we have all of those things. And those organs make up an organism, okay? In cells, you have organs for cells, so we call them organelles. Does that make sense? So we're going to be looking at all the different organelles. You guys should already be pretty familiar with these because you have colored them and learned about them. Okay. So we're going to look at the different organelles on a sheet of paper. So you have vacuole, mitochondria, ribosomes, lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, endoplasmic reticulum. Say that 5 times fast. You can also call it the ER. Easier. The nucleus, the cytoskeleton, which is composed of microtubules and microfilaments, the cell membrane, and then chloroplasts. You guys probably haven't learned about chloroplasts yet because those are only found in plant cells, which we're going to be talking about at the beginning of next week. So I wouldn't expect you to know it yet, but we are going to talk about it here today. Okay? All right. So we are going to compare the cell to a city by making an analogy. Kind of like when we did, we talked about the analogous structures in evolution. You had like the butterfly wings were analogous to the bird wings. They have the same function, but they're a different structure. So our cell analogy, we're going to look at a city, and the component of the city that we're going to compare the organelle to has the same function, but obviously at a different scale. Okay? All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is the vacuole. And in a city, I'm going to compare that to storage units, okay? So you would write these things here, right? So storage units. And I messed up on the first one because I ran out of room, okay? So storage units are what vacuoles are. Sorry, I can't get used to this computer. And so storage units, so you think of like all those like you see all those like giant metal buildings that store things. And what do? They store stuff for you to use later. And vacuoles are the same thing. So vacuoles store things in the cell, usually food or water or something, until the cell needs to use them. So what I would write here, instead of just like storage units, I would say they both store stuff for later use, okay? So they both store stuff for later use. So that's what you would write down on vacuole. A vacuole is like a storage unit because both storage units and vacuoles store things for later use, okay? In a cell, they store food molecules, water molecules, that sort of thing. And in the city, storage units store all of your extra like furniture and TVs and stuff like that. Vacuoles in a cell, sometimes more important, okay? You could also say it's kind of like your garage or your attic in your house, but then we'll get to the other part of the analogy, okay? So vacuoles are storage units, and they store their own materials, okay? All right, the next one I'll get the use of is mitochondria. Mitochondria are like coal power plants, okay? Coal power plant. So you would say the mitochondria is like coal power plants because they both burn fuel for energy. So you would write they both burn fuel for energy. Mitochondria and coal power plants both burn fuel for energy. In the case of a coal power plant, the fuel is coal, and in the case of mitochondria, the fuel is sugar. There's other things besides sugar, but just for simplicity, we're just going to say it's sugar, okay? So mitochondria are like coal power plants because they both burn fuel for energy, okay? Coal power plants burn coal, and mitochondria burn sugar, okay? And without mitochondria, everyone would be dead. Like, you can't be alive without mitochondria. Unless you're a bacteria, but then you're kind of your own mitochondria. But we'll get into that, okay? So mitochondria are like power plants. They both burn fuel to provide energy for the cell, just like a power plant provides energy for a city, okay? Follow me so far. If it's moving too fast, we can, the sub can pause the video if you guys need to write down your things. But yeah, cool. All right, next one, ribosomes. Some people call them ribosomes, and that's just really annoying. Don't call them ribosomes. You're not British. Ribosomes. Okay. So ribosomes. So the third one down. Right? I don't know where my finger is. Oh, it's right here. Ribosomes are like factories, okay? And what do factories do? They both make all the things. Factories and ribosomes make all the things, okay? Ribosomes are responsible for making proteins, okay? So ribosomes are responsible for making proteins. Proteins are going to do everything in the cell. You're going to watch a film later this week about that. but proteins do everything. They carry out all of life's functions, okay? And factories are going to make all the goods that we use in a city, right? So they make our cars, they make our refrigerators, our cell phones. Everything that we use in a city is made in a factory, okay? So ribosomes are like factories because they both make all the things. Ribosomes make all the things to carry out life function in a cell, and factories make all the things that we need in a city. So like cars and refrigerators and cell phones and paper and all that kind of stuff. Okay? All right. The next one. Lysosomes. Okay? These are like the recycling centers of cities. They're like recycling centers because they both break down old things. They both break down old things, okay? Lysosomes break down worn out organelles or other things that have entered the cell that shouldn't be there. And recycling centers are going to break down the stuff that we don't use anymore. So like all of the old paper and bottles and cans and scrap metal, they all get recycled. They're broken down and reused. So lysosomes do that for the cell. Lysosomes do that for the cell, and recycling centers do that for the city. Okay? Making sense so far? I hope. Yes? Cool? All right. The next one is the... that's easier. The Golgi apparatus. Also called sometimes the Golgi complex. But this one right here. Okay? This is like... I'll get used to this after we're done. And you guys are getting motion sick, I bet. Okay. So the Golgi apparatus is like the post office or FedEx or UPS of the cell, okay? It's like that because they package and ship stuff, okay? The Golgi apparatus packages and ships proteins, lipids, which are also known as fats, all kinds of things are packaged and modified by the Golgi apparatus and then shipped throughout different parts of the cell. So sometimes it's taken to a different part of the cell, and sometimes it's transported out of the cell, okay? So the Golgi apparatus is like the post office or FedEx because they both package and ship stuff, okay? So a lot of people, you order stuff on Amazon, it's packaged and shipped to you. So that would be like in an organism that could be, it's really cool the way neurons work. So neurons, your brain cells and everything send things via signals, right? And those signals are actually chemical. And the chemicals are packaged by the Golgi apparatus in one cell, and then it's sent to the outside of the cell, and then that it transports to a different cell, okay? And so that's how the signals pass between our neurons, our brain, right? And so for you to think ooh, I'm hungry for ice cream, there's tons of stuff being sent back and forth. The Golgi apparatus is largely responsible for packaging and shipping those things, okay? All right, now my favorite word to say is the endoplasmic reticulum. Yes, right there. The endoplasmic reticulum is kind of like the industrial center of the cell, okay? So think about cities like Sparks is much more of an industrial city than Reno. So think about all the factories and everything and the stuff that you see like Sparks heading down to Spice Island Way all those places over there. And that's the endoplasmic reticulum is considered the industrial center of the cell because that's where all the factories are. So your rough endoplasmic reticulum, it's rough because it has a bunch of bumps on them, and the bumps are all ribosomes, right? So we follow the ribosomes are all the factories. The endoplasmic reticulum is considered the industrial center because that's where all the factories are. That's where all the building is happening. That's where all of the manufacturing is happening, right? The smooth endoplasmic reticulum, the smooth ER, makes a lot of lipids, or the stuff that's known as fats. And so there, it would also be considered an industrial center. So endoplasmic reticulum is the industrial center of the cell. It's where all the factories are made. Okay? All right. Good so far? Okay, so we have the vacuole, which is the storage unit. We have the mitochondria, which is our coal-fired power plant. We have ribosomes, which are all of our factories. We have the lysosomes, which are the recycling centers. We have the Golgi apparatus, which is the post office or FedEx. We have the endoplasmic reticulum, or reticula, there's two, which is like our industrial center because that's where all the stuff is made. All of that is controlled by our next organelle. All of the organelles are important, but this is where the really important stuff is, right? Because we've learned a lot about it, which is the nucleus. All right, the nucleus, which is also City Hall, right? And City Hall is where the mayor lives, or not lives, unless it's a really dedicated mayor. But that's where all decisions are made. That's where everything is controlled, is at the City Hall. So the City Hall controls everything in the city, just like the nucleus controls everything in the cell. So the City Hall controls everything in the city, and the nucleus controls everything in the cell. Okay? Nucleus and City Hall, synonymous. And the reason this is because the nucleus contains this very important code, the D and A, right? So the DNA is has all the instructions. So really, like, the DNA is the mayor and is the city council because it lives in City Hall, it lives in the nucleus, and then it sends out all these instructions to control the entire cell, just like City Hall would control the entire city. Okay, or at least in a good city. All right, good so far. We're gonna time. So that's really important. If you don't get anything else out of cells, which you need to get a lot out because it's pretty big and pretty important, understand that the nucleus contains the DNA and it controls the cell. Okay? All right. The next one. Okay, cytoskeleton, which is composed of microtubules and microfilaments. Okay? So the cytoskeleton is going to be exactly like roads and the columns of buildings, really everything that anything is made out of, because it supports and connects the cell. So the cytoskeleton is like the columns and the pillars and everything that support the cell, much like the roads and the building materials that everything is made of, supports a city, right? So without roads, you would have a pretty sad city. And without like columns to support the buildings, you would have pretty sad buildings. They would like fall down and crush each other, right? So the cytoskeleton are like the roads and the buildings, building columns, and they support and they connect things. So in a cell, they support and connect organelles, and in a city, they're going to support and connect buildings and other things. Okay. Ooh, we're getting close to the end. All right, I'm just going to hold this up here because now I can read it and see you. So next one is the cell membrane. Okay, so the cell membrane is like the city limits, but it's more like the toll booths. So if you guys go to California and you need to cross a bridge, a lot of times you have to go through the toll booth, right? And you have to pay money or something. The cell membrane is very much like that. It controls what enters and leaves the cell, much like toll booths control what enters and leaves the city. Okay. You guys are probably more familiar with if you like drive to Truckee, like if you're driving to California, you have that big way station, and you have to pass through, and they're like, "Where are you coming from?" And you're like, "Oh, Reno," and then they wave you through. Same thing. It's just like a cell membrane. It controls what enters and leaves the state of California. Or a lot of people like to compare it to like the border fence on the Mexico-U.S. border. So it's whatever's controlling or entering something. That's what the cell membrane does. Because you can't just have anything pass through your cell membrane, because that would be really bad. Really bad. And you'll find out about that when you watch the video. And then the last one, my hands are getting tired, but you have chloroplasts. So chloroplasts are only found in plants. And chloroplasts are just like solar panels. Okay? They both absorb the energy of the sun. Okay? They both absorb the energy of the sun. Because chloroplasts are the organelle that's involved in photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, right? So chloroplasts and solar panels are very similar, and actually they're like crazy similar. If you get into like the molecular atomic structures, it's awesome. But they're exactly like solar panels. They absorb the energy of the sun. Okay? Yes? My computer went to sleep. I hope that didn't ruin anything. All right. Okay. So you filled out all this. I hope everyone was able to get all the information down. Oh, it feels so nice not to hold that paper. So we did this one together. We made a cell analogy together, right? To compare a cell to a city. So if you look at the other sheets on your cell analogy page, it says create your own cell analogy. Okay, so it says on here, it says now you need to create your own cell analogy. An analogy compares two things together based on their structure or function. Okay, just like the city, we compared the structure or function of an organelle to the structure and function of a city object, building, thing. Okay. So what you guys need to do is you're going to come up with your own cell analogy that incorporates all of those organelles we just talked about. Okay. And you can't use the city one or anything close. But some examples could be you could have a space station. You could talk about a cruise line, so like, the Carnival Cruises. The North Pole, that might be a good one. Santa just visited. You could say a school. I just said that. An island resort, so think about like the Atlantis with like the giant, water slide that goes into the Shark Tank. Island resort. Or a shopping mall. Or pick something else. Like it's whatever you want. The important thing is that your description of how the organelle is like the thing you're comparing it to. So for example, you could fill this out really easily. You could like say a vacuole is like a puppy. Is that gonna, do I really care that you said, oh, a vacuole is like a puppy and a mitochondria is like a cat? Does that make any sense at all? I'm hoping the answer is no. The important thing is that you're making the connection between the two, so that you're connecting vacuole with something else that has the same function as a vacuole, right? I won't give you too much help with that because I want you guys to be creative, and I know you guys can be. And then once you come up with it, so you fill out this whole thing, you're going to then draw a picture of your cell analogy on a separate sheet of computer paper. So you know where those are. They're in the Lorax drawer in the back. But yes, I think that should be it. If you have any questions, don't feel free to ask other people around you. Please don't copy. I mean, you guys can work on similar things, but it's not going to be very helpful for you if you're just like, oh, hey, like, you did a cell, like, what did you put for nucleus? And then so you just write down whatever they put for nucleus, and then that's not going to be very helpful for you because the memory process. If you're like you're like pulling it out of your brain, you're putting it on paper, and in that whole process of pulling it out and reading, and like this back and forth process, and then blah 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 in your brain. That's going to be more important for you to help you remember them than it is to say like, oh, what did you put for that? There's nothing. You're just like, and then writing stuff down, right? You're not doing anything cognitively, right? All right, cool. Oh, one other thing. Make sure that all of the organelles fit into one analogy, okay? So if you pick a school, make sure that everything on the list has to relate to a school. So don't say like, well, mitochondria is a nuclear reactor, because schools don't have nuclear reactors, okay? So be feasible, be reasonable. Make sense? Cool. I will let you get to it. You'll be working on this for the rest of class. Tomorrow, you're going to be watching a pretty awesome film. And then after that, you'll probably have some time to work on your packet because the film is pretty, I think it's like an hour, and it's pretty cool. So this packet, you should have everything up to the cell analogy done by the time you come back to school on Tuesday. So make sure it's done, okay? Because I'll be checking that when I get back. Dun, dun, dun. All right, cool. Have fun. I shall see you when I get back, and enjoy.